right, good morning. Welcome back to TwinStick Garage. So now that I got the Smokey and the Bandit truck out the door and most of the exhaust out as well, I can get working on the Smokey and the Bandit TransAm. So picking up where I left off in the last TransAm episode, I'm going to take all this new hardware from QA1 and put it on the car. All right, so I've just been taking inventory of all of the awesome hardware that QA1 sent me. And what I've noticed is their instructions are extremely detailed, which is just fantastic. So they talk about the tools that you're going to need, disassembly instructions that old TwinSticks didn't follow, and then of course the assembly instructions with good tips like using anti-seize on the coilover threads to make sure that they don't gall up. And then they also have links to instruction videos if you're just not comfortable after you read through this, and you can kind of watch the YouTube video and see how to install them. And it's cool. I actually went to check this one out, and I've already learned one thing, that these springs are actually machined flat, so they don't need to be indexed when you put them in the car. They can just sit wherever they land, and then you can just swing the lower control arm into place and compress it up. So that is pretty slick. I'm still going through all of the instructions. I just want to make sure I've got a good familiarization and I put this stuff together correctly. Another one of the neat tips was don't torque everything until the installation is complete and the ride height is kind of set. So everything kind of sets down, and then you go back and torque everything up. Now, of course, anytime you touch front suspension, it's going to need a proper alignment by a proper shop. So I'll try and get it as close as I can and then drive it over and get it aligned. But yeah, I'm looking forward to getting this stuff on there. It's going to be a big improvement over what came from the factory in 1980. All right, so this is one of those times where I should have read the disassembly instructions. And had I read them, it would have clearly stated that I should have took note of the alignment shims, how many there were and in what position they were in, because they come in different thicknesses. Now these alignment shims are set up so basically the alignment shop can just loosen these nuts off, pry the upper control arm over, and set the camber of the wheels by adding or taking away shims. So of course, old TwinSticks just tore into it, took everything apart, and let all the shims fall on the floor. So I just put one on each side. I mean, it'll be close enough to at least drive it to the alignment shop. But yeah, apologies to whoever aligns this, because they're going to be way off. Ugh, look at those welds. Damn! All right, so next up, I've got to modify the coilovers that were supplied. Now, they come from QA1 with the stock mount. So this would be the mount to go on the stock lower control arm. But since I'm mounting these on the QA1 modified control arms, I need to actually get this out of here. So in order to do that, just been reading through the instructions here, pretty straightforward. Take these snap rings out of here. Next up, push the T-bar out of the bushing. Now next off, they say to cut the ear off the bushing. I've learned enough to know that if you're going to cut something, it's not going to be easy to cut. Always a good idea to put a little protection on your hands. All right, so I'm going to try a little more old school knife. Let's see if I can cut through this. There it goes. Done, and I didn't slice off my finger. So here, there it goes. All right. Get it in there. Okay, done. All right, so now that I got that spherical bearing in the bottom so it can mate into the lower control arm, I'm gonna finish with the assembly of this coilover shock system. So this particular model actually has a dual adjustable, so you can adjust the C compression and R rebound. Now ideally, it's all going to depend on your car, how heavy your car is. Do you have a small block? Do you have a big block? How much weight's in the front? How you like it to ride. So I'm going to set it all the way negative, and then as I get the engine in the car and get it on the road, I can adjust these up and get this tuned into the way I like it. Okay, so this is where it starts to get messy because they really recommend putting anti-seize. And if you've used anti-seize before, you know it just goes everywhere. So by the end of the day, there's gonna be gray thumbprints on all of this beautiful QA1 stuff. But it's a necessary evil to make sure that these adjusting nuts and locking nuts don't gall on this aluminum, the aluminum threads here on the outside. So I guess I'll just rip off the Band-Aid and start smearing this stuff all over. Some is good, more is better, right? All right. So the first one that goes down is the locking nut. This one, what it'll do is it'll lock against the main adjusting nut, which is this guy here. Look at that, I'm getting anti-seize all over the nice QA1 logo. Like I say, this stuff goes everywhere. Next, I've got to put some anti-seize on this face here. What you're trying to do is just to keep these, because this is where the adjustment's going to come in, right? You use these special wrenches, and this will help set the load on that spring and kind of set your ride and your ride height. So you put the washer, and they actually have, there's these little thrust bearings, as you can see here. Now the idea with this is it helps to give it a little bit of, the bearings help to reduce resistance as you're trying to adjust this up while it's in the car. So again, they recommend even more anti-seize. Come on, Mark, don't overdo it. Okay, let me put that guy on there. And another washer. Okay, so something like that. Okay, now I need to put the washers on the top there. Okay, and then you'll take a look at this. It's got a kind of a smaller raised edge and then a larger one. So the larger one goes down into the washer and the smaller one will go in the hole that's already in the car. And then I've got the same deal to put it in once I install it and push it through. I'll swing over there and show you that. All right, now I'll put the rubber spacer and the washer up top. And I'll just tighten the nut finger tight for now. And then this should hold in place. I should be able to install the bolt through that bearing. Something like that. All right. Again, I'm going to torque everything up once I get it all in place. Then I'll go back and make sure everything's properly torqued, and then I'll also have to go back and pop off all these little caps and shoot a little bit of grease into all of the joints. But that's looking pretty good. All right, so I've just been reading the instructions here, and it does say there's an initial setting that you can set this up with. So shocks with 2 adjuster knobs, 2 to 8 clicks compression and rebound for nice ride and handling, and then 8 to 12 clicks for firm ride. So I think what I might do is I'll set it up at 10 in, 9, 10. So there's 10 compression in. So there's 10 on both. So that should be kind of a compromise between aggressive handling and then a nice ride. And again, so easy to adjust. I put the knobs purposely on the outside, so that way I don't have to crawl under the car. If I want to stop and make an adjustment, I can just crank the wheels all the way over, reach in here, and just adjust the compression and the rebound. So next up is you can set the ride height. So I can go in here, so it just locks into the teeth there, and you can crank it up. And that was the purpose of that thrust bearing and all that anti-seize. So I can't really adjust beyond just leaving it at the bottom, because I'll have no idea until I get my 461 engine back from Butler and put it in the car, put the proper wheels on, set it down, and then and see where it sits. But that's so cool, because now I can adjust the ride height for the look that I want. So I can either rake it like a bit of a hot rod, or I can have it level, but I can do complete adjustments here, and then you just set this lock ring against it, and that keeps it from moving as you're going down the road. Okay, so next up is I'm trying to clean up some of that anti-seize, and then I guess I've got to get the old spindle back on. So the spring's going to need to be compressed a little bit, but don't worry, I've got a tool for that. I could probably torque this guy down now. What does it say? 65, okay. Good. Okay. Now I can put the cotter pin in, I guess, since it's already down here. So now I need to raise this up and compress the spring. And to do that, I'm going to use my new jack. So Vivor sent me this, and I've been wanting to try one of these airbag jacks out. They're actually rated for an incredible amount of weight. Like this one here is rated for 5 tons. So I can use this, I mean, it doesn't look like it, but I can actually use this to lift up the rig. So it should have no trouble lifting this guy up. So we'll give her a go here and see how it works. Oh, slick. Man, that is slick. There we go, 55. All right, so just to show you here, the hole doesn't quite line up with the castle nut to get the cotter pin through. So you never want to loosen it. You want to tighten it, in this case, just a touch. Maybe a touch more. You never want to loosen to try and line up with a cotter pin hole. You always want to go tighter. I forgot. I've got a new neck holder for my camera, so I can use both hands. Okay, that should work now. Now where's my cotter pin? There we go. Now to release. Slick. All right, now all we need is some TransAm wheels. We're ready to give her down the road. All right, so these new control arms, actually the lower control arm comes with this adjustable stop as well. So once I get the car finished and obviously, you know, calipers, brakes, wheels on here and tires, I can actually see, and once the steering's all reconnected, I can adjust this if needed, back that out and just put some more washers in there and then lock it back in if that actually goes too far. So that is pretty cool. Thank you, QA1. All right, just like everything I always do, what I do to one side, I got to do to the other. All right, so just like anything in life, once you do it once, the next time goes a lot easier and quicker. So that went really well. Got that all installed, and I have to say, reading the instructions, I know something new for TwinSticks, but it is extremely helpful. A lot of good tips in there. And one of the ones was to tighten this nut up enough until the rubber bushing squishes to the diameter of the washer, and then stop. And then you put this little lock nut against it to keep it from walking back. So I did that, and I guess the next step will be to, oh, look at that weld. The next step would be to double check all the torques on everything, because I wouldn't want anything to fly off while Mrs. TwinSticks is doing 110 down the highway.
Are we really going 110? We're going 110.
put this steering back where it's supposed to be. Now, these tie rod ends are, well, they're not too bad, but I'm thinking it's probably worth replacing this old garbage. I mean, I got these beautiful brand new QA1 suspension components, and it just seems sad to put something as crusty as this back in there. So I could, I'll just mock it up for now, but I think I'm actually going to order some new tie rod ends. I think that makes sense. So I'll finish putting that on there. And then I'll get going on installing this massive sway bar. Look at this beautiful piece of kit. Give you a little pack of special grease here, and it's supposed to go on the inside of where the bushing goes, I think, just to combat squeaks and such. Okay, something like that. Spread on my wildfire lift is just a little too wide for this sway bar, so something like that. Now it also wants me to use these spacer blocks. And if I was a smart man, I would get my jack stands out to hold this bar up in place. But they've got lights attached to them, so I'm gonna try and just do this the old school way. See if I can at least get one bolt on each side started.
I'm not a smart man.
Had to get a little creative here to get this last mount on. Thank goodness for the VVOR jack, because what it says in the instructions is to set the car down, and of course I don't have the calipers on, so I can't put the wheels on, because the instructions say to set the car down, and when it sets down on the ground, it helps to get the sway bar to the right position to be able to bolt it into place. So I had to use the VVOR jack, but man, this thing is sure come in handy. I'm pretty impressed with it, and I love the fact that you can really tweak the height that you want it. It's light. It's a hell of a lot easier to move this thing around than a hydraulic floor jack. Okay, so now I should be able to tighten this up. That should do it. One sway bar installed. Well, there you go. One modern upgraded suspension on this old 1980 TransAm. I have to say that's the nicest thing on this car now. Mrs. TwinSticks will be able to go around corners like it's on rails. Even jump bridges if she wants to. It could take it. So it's going to be a lot of fun when we finally get this car back together and back on the ground. I can set the ride height. I can set the ride, whether it's a soft ride or a little more aggressive for racing around corners and such. But yeah, that's awesome. I'm really happy with how well that went on there. It wasn't too bad, especially once I figured out what I was doing. So if you want to upgrade the suspension on your old car or truck, go check them out, qa1.net. They got a great website that a whole bunch of drop downs. You just put your year and make model in there and see what's available for your car. But I can't wait to get this thing on the road. So special thanks to QA1. Really appreciate you sending TwinSticks this wonderful gear for the Smokey and the Bandit 1 Trans Am. And special thanks to the fans and the viewers out there. Appreciate you watching this video all the way to the end. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned something. Thanks again for watching. If you haven't already commented, feel free to tell me a comment about what I did good, bad, or otherwise. And with that, I'll wrap it up there. See you next week. And don't ever forget, if you got it, truckers brought it.